questions on that, and Joe will speak to those.
I'll make a couple of comments about counties that don't have water districts, because Bastrop County at one time didn't have a water district. The two cases we're talking about 99 was Ozarka versus Mr. Cipriano, when Ozarka came in and drilled a well field next to Mr. Cipriano's property and his well went dry. So if you go ask Mr. Cipriano, he owned his water, well maybe he owned it, but it's not there anymore. The original case was the East case back in 1904, which was a very similar case, which started the rule of capture in Texas, was a large railroad came in and, I think they were hand-dug wells back then, but dug a lot larger well than Mr. East had, and his well went dry, and the Supreme Court said that the movement of underground water was so mysterious, so cult and concealed, that they couldn't decide what was happening to it. And if you're in a county and you don't have a water district, when the water marketers come, you will be like Mr. East and you will be like Mr. Cipriano, because there will be no spacing rules, there will be no limits to what they can take. And some counties have enough water where people want to get it, like in the Carrizo here in central Texas, and other counties are very small counties with limited water resources, but without, I call the water districts kind of like a speed cop, without stop signs and limits. The growth in the developers and the water marketers will come in and they will take the water and it will go from your local rural area away to the larger growth areas in the state of Texas.
David, did you have something? And then I want to ask Joe a question.
You know, I believe Region K has as a policy a no mining of aquifers as one of your policies. And I feel like that, having that in place and then having a policy that actually calls for mining the aquifer is in conflict. And there is a DFC petition process where landowners, people with groundwater interests can petition the Water Development Board and the GMAs that they feel these DFCs are going to be harmful to certain individuals. And I do think the downstream interests that will be impacted by this large pumping upstream should really be paying attention to what these GMAs are doing. And just a minute on correlative rights. In our district...
Does everybody know what correlative rights is? Explain it.
Correlative rights means we have a certain amount of groundwater and then it's allocated equally across the landscape for acreage that you own. So in our district, we have a little over 200,000 acres in the Hays Trinity District, Western Hays. And if we took our current management plan number, the 3714, and we divided that over the land area, it would come out to about 12 gallons per acre. And in terms of a reasonable amount of water for a family to live on, or for ranching or agricultural operation, that calculation doesn't work. A company like Aqua Texas and their 800-acre CCN and their full build-out of that one subdivision, 3,600 lots, would take 97,000 acres of land to provide a correlative right for that CCN to pump the water for that one subdivision. So in terms of our, over-allocation, a correlative, strategy is not feasible for us to implement. So how do we deal with this? And I do think your point, the disconnect between groundwater and surface water, we have to make that connection somehow through the law, and also recognize that 25,000 gallons per individual exempt well is an extraordinary amount of water. And I doubt many single families are pumping that much, but in terms of just a policy that's there that is not really reasonable, I think we need to look at that and understand how to make this water available to everyone that needs it, but not allow the privatization of it to hurt the larger community. And I don't know how to do that. I'm hoping that wisdom in this group can find that today.
Well, we're not looking for all the solutions today. If you could pass that to Joe.
Our board and representative that went to the GMA meetings, and none of these GMA meetings or board meetings are ever going to secret. They're all open to the public. There is a petition process, just like I mentioned. We started out as zero total sustainability in perpetuity. In other words, we'll keep drawing water until we see some wells go down or the levels go down. We were pretty well told by the Water Development Board, even though they're not a rulemaking authority, that you're going to do that. And You can. And the reason we could is because our neighbors had already permitted water that were going into this same, what they call it, GAM, the groundwater availability model, that were already going to affect our levels in Lee County by approximately 150, 200 feet, depending on the size of that contract, or how much of that water, that 71,000 acre feet you model. So we knew we couldn't start at zero, so we started playing with real growth numbers, not based on projected populations, but just at what we looked at changes in Bastrop from pumping histories all the way back to 1980 to present, and extrapolated that forward based on a steady 3.8% growth when you average it all out. And we knew what volume of water we were going to need to pump locally and support locally here in 2060, and that's when the planning period actually ends. And we're going to need all the water we have here, and it's still going to correct some drawdowns. So our drawdown models ended up being an average of 237 feet, an average over Bastrop and Lee County. Now, Lee County bleeds a lot worse because of their proximity to the Blue Project. Their average is going to be 345 feet in that county, whereas in Bastrop County it's only going to be about 147 feet. The other reason for that real low protected number in Bastrop County is we have a lion's share of the growth, plus the part of the aquifer that we're concerned about, we're talking about the Simsboro here, only goes about halfway across the county and it ends. The fact is the aquifer that's under attack by most water markers is the Simsboro, which roughly runs 4.5 miles southwest of the Colorado River, and it comes to an end. And it only runs toward East Texas about 10 miles beyond the Brazos River. It's just a unique portion of the Carrizo-Wilcox Formation that everybody's after because it's so prolific. You can put in a 3,500 gallon a minute well, you can probably put in a 5,000 gallon a minute well. But the thing is that that's why water markers kind of favor it. Now some have changed to want to maybe explore some Hooper water and some Carrizo water. But I mean, nobody's coming in here and wanting to pump the Keller Bluff or anything like that, or the Reclaw, or some of the other aquifers that are entwined with these aquifers and communicate with them. But they're not looking for those kind of volumes of water. They're wanting mega volumes.
What are we talking about here today? What's the title of this? This is we're asking for a moratorium.
Yes.
We're asking for what Lost Pine Groundwater Conservation District has done. And part of the reason for that is because this desired future condition, as Joe said, has not come to an end yet. I mean, they've gotten part of it, but they haven't really completed the cycle on it.
Well, how did they do it?
Well, just part of that means is that the science that we've talked about, the science that we need to bring to this has not yet played out. So the marketers, those who are pumping, have gotten ahead of the game. They're already permitting and pumping
How
prior.
did they get a moratorium and the others can't? How were they able to get a moratorium and the other districts can't seem to?
Desire, I think.
The short answer for our district is because that's what we found in the law. In House Bill 1763, the companion bill from the Senate side that went with it, stated that until you have adopted your DFCs, which we did, until they've been approved by the Water Development Board, and you've redone your water management plan, and it's been accepted by the Water Development Board, when all this is done, you can then start permitting. Everybody else in the state just went right, permits right on. We stopped. We've been in a moratorium for quite some time. The fact is, we've been in a moratorium twice, but the second time is the same reason. I mean, we felt like the state law said that you do not issue permits until you get your managed available groundwater back from the Water Development Board. We're still not there. They still haven't issued us that official number.
And as Marie says, it's the Texas Water Development Board that's guiding that.
I just wanted to pick up from what you were saying, Patty. And I think the answer to that is private property rights by itself doesn't give an answer to what you're saying, other than, by the way, you do have to protect, you're going to have to sue because that's what you do with private property rights. It's a package situation, I think, So, I mean, for instance, if we were able to get correlative rights, property rights / correlative rights, we then start putting limits on groundwater pumping by the aquifer that actually prevent drawdown. There's no way, realistically, that a water developer is going to be able to buy up enough acreage to make it profitable to go hire a New York law firm. It has to be that combination.
And I think the thing that this points to is that this is a very complicated situation. And what we have in the way of Texas legislation is we've had a patchwork of laws that have been put together over many years, not recognizing that groundwater and surface water actually interact. And over the years, this patchwork has all kinds of flaws in it. I mean, it basically, there's some really good stuff in it.
They're being exploited by the water.
And that's exactly what's happening. Do we have a heated issue here or not? Yes, sir. Well, there's a lot, I think there's a lot of potential things that we could put Band-Aids on. And this is why, not only are we asking for a moratorium, we're asking the legislature to have a dialogue with the people, to have public hearings, public comments, let's hear, let's understand these issues, and then to sit and comprehensively look at our water code and restructure the water code so that it all fits together, works together, so that we have rational ways. I mean, these are very, very complicated issues, and it's going to take a lot to sort them out.
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm interrupting. Sorry about that. Okay, we have very limited time left, so can we take one quick question from someone who has not spoken yet?
No, you look like.
And then we're going to stop. There are other panels. There's more discussion, guys. This is not it.
I would like for the lady to explain what's going on in Gonzales County. That water district down there is going to be very, very interesting. I live in South Bastrop County in the suburbs of Jetto, and it's just below me. And I think this would be a very interesting thing for everybody to know what's going on down there. They bought saws, and then they sold to a man in California. Am I correct?
Well, what happened in Gonzales County is, number one, they got groundwater district. A gentleman whose name is Barry Miller was their general manager. And as soon as the groundwater district was put in place, the water marketers showed up. Two water companies, a conglomerate of what you're talking about, came to town. And what they did was, and again, this is also based on the legislation that is written that actually makes your local groundwater district. I think you guys would always agree to that. For example, in Fayette County, if you own less than 5 acres of land, guess what? You buy your water, you don't drill a well. Well, that's not like that in so many other counties. So local districts have different rules and regulations that their legislation was written for. Well, such that Gonzales County's was written, what happened is they had a group of people that tried to fight saws. They actually put a moratorium almost a year for new wells, for new commercial wells. And guess what they did? Their water district was split. They voted for it, and now the water is in Gonzales County is being exited, and it's going to Schertz for saws for use, and that is with a groundwater district.
And as I remember a quote from one of the water profiteers of one of our river authorities, not too far away from here. Well, actually not this river authority. But it basically said, if we wait for all these laws and everything to be sorted out, somebody else is going to have the water. So that is exactly, and that's pretty much the mental attitude we have. Right now with the water profiteers and the marketers, if they're taking advantage of this broken system, and they're saying, hey, if we wait, somebody else is going to get the water. So that's where we have to